Welcome to ProgrammingKT. I am explaining about the concept is variables. So I will explain about what is the use of variables, how to declare a variable, how to initialize a variable, and what are the scopes available for variables, and memory allocation for variables. So before this, I need to explain about one point. When you are working with Java, most of the times we can write our business logic inside class only. So class have majorly four components. Let me try to list out them. So most of the times we can write our business logic inside class only when you are working with Java. So first one is variables, second one is methods, third one is constructors, fourth one is blocks. Static block, either it may be instance block, static or instance. So these are the four components. So if you have proper knowledge on all these four components, so almost you learned Java. So these four concepts have that much important. In this video, I am trying to explain about variables, right? Now let me try to explain one by one. Some important points about variables. So first point is variables are used to store the data, so to do some processing logic. So we can store temporary data. For storing temporary data, we can use variables inside RAM. So by using variables, we can't store permanent data. So to do some processing logic purpose only, we can use variables. So variables are used to store the data. So temporary data only, not permanent data. Next one is types of variables. Variables are two types: primitive variables and reference variables. So primitive variables are nothing but just like integer, int, float, double, long, all primitive data types we have in Java. So all those data types we can declare variables by using, primitive, primitive data types like int is a primitive data type, float is a primitive data type, char and boolean. So like this we have almost seven primitive data types. So these are primitive data types. Primitive data type. Second one is reference data types like arrays and any other class like emp class or student class, like this. These are reference data types, variable reference variables. Next one is, so primitive data types we can store the data. This is also one of the disadvantage of Java is not 100% object oriented programming, right? So we can't play with some initializing null values. This kind of we are setting the data. This kind of we can't perform. Just we can declare it. This is the one disadvantage of primitive values. Primitive values in Java. That's why we can't say Java is not 100% programming language. So next one is declaring variables. How to declare a variable? So variables we can declare, first we need to specify the data type, then we can mention that variable name. So first we need to specify the data type, what type of data you are trying to store into a variable. So variables are used to store the data, right, for temporary data. So for that, more the type of the variables, primitive variable or reference variable. So what kind of data you are trying to store. So let us imagine, before writing example, let me try to write syntax for this declaring variables. So syntax. So if you are trying to store integer type of data, first we need to specify. Let us imagine first I will write syntax, then I will explain. So first we need to specify type of data. I mean data type. I can say here. So data type, then variable name, then variable name. So data type. So I am trying to store in I mean student age. I am trying to write example. So age is integer data type, right? For that I can use this primitive. So int. So variable name is age. So this is called declaring a variable. So first we need to specify the data type, then you can create variable name. So exactly we are talking about this part only. So not only integer, we can specify depending on our requirement. We can declare any type of variable. Let me try to declare boolean also. So what is data type? I am trying to store boolean value like boolean is adult. So I am trying to declare one more variable. So this is called variable declaration. How to declare a variable? First we need to specify the data type, then variable name ends with a semicolon. This is called declaration of a variable. So next one is how to initialize variable. So declaration part is done. Next one is initialization. Initialization. How to initialize a variable? So here I already declared variable. So imagine for this variable I am trying to assign a value, right? Some value I need to assign to age 25. So this is the variable name, this is the actual value. So this is called initialization. So all both at a time we can do it. Let me try to, this is also one approach. First we can declare it, then we can assign it, or else we can do both at a time. Now let me try to declare one more variable. I can provide some initialization and declaration and initialization. I am trying to perform both at a time. So first one is, let me try to write the syntax for that. Initialize, declaring and initialization both at a time. So data type variable name value of that variable ends with a semicolon. So we can perform step 3 and step 4 at a time. So I am trying to store student id value is some 154. So this is called data type, this is variable name, assignment operator assignment operator, actual value ends with a semicolon. So I am performing both at a time, declaring and initialization. So this is about fourth point, initialization. Next one will be variable scope. So when I'm trying to write the code inside IDE, I will explain. So fourth point is scope. So instead of writing this whiteboard, when I'm writing code, code in IDE, then I will explain. Like fourth point, fifth point is scope. So variable, we have two type of scopes for any variable. Like first one is global global scope. The second one is local scope. So a variable which is declared inside class outside of any method. So inside class outside outside of method or methods. So a variable is declared inside of a class but outside of method is called global variable. So local variable is the variable that is declared inside of a method is called local variable inside method. So those are local variables. A variable is declared inside a method. This one also I will explain when I am trying to write the code in IDE. So finally one more point I am trying to explain. So that is memory allocation for variables. Memory. So we have two type of variables, right? And I explained on Second point, type of variables, primitive variables and reference variables, right? So all primitive values, I mean primitive variables, memory will be allocated in stack memory. So we have two type of memories, stack memory, second one is heap memory. So when I am talking about memory concept, I will explain in detail. For now we are talking about variables, right? All primitive variables, all primitive variables are stored in stack memory. So all reference variables are stored in heap memory. So I hope you got some clarity. What are the variables? What is the use of variables? How to declare a variable? Types of variables, scope of a variable, and memory allocation for variable. Now let me try to execute that. Concept. I mean execute, write the code and execute this variables concept. Let me try to explain one more time. So before writing the code on IDE, can minimize it. So I explained about what are the variables. I mean, what is the use of variables? Variables are used to store the temporary data. Two type of variables will be there in Java: primitive variables and reference variables. Primitive variables are nothing but int, float, char, double, these kind of variables. So I will explain each, and we have almost seven primitive variables. I will explain. So next one is reference variables. So these are nothing but arrays and some custom employee of that student of these kind of things. So declaring variable syntax will be, first we need to specify the data type, then variable name. So initialization, we can assign a variable name to some value with assignment operator. So next one is scope. We have two scopes for any variable: local scope and global scope. So global is nothing but inside class, outside of any method. Local variables, that is declared inside a method. Now, finally, memory. So, all primitive variables are stored inside a stack memory, and all reference variables are stored inside a heap memory. So, we can explain, I mean, I will explain in detail about when I am talking about memory concept. For now, you can focus on variables part only. Now, let me try to execute try to write examples on IDE. So, previously, in last video, I created one introduction folder. Inside that, I explained like this, right? I wrote some variables and system out statement and along with some expressions. So now let me try to create one folder called variables. You can create on Java programming. So variables. So inside that variables, I am trying to create one file called all Java file name must should start with, capital V. Lowercase also we can provide, but it is recommended. So variables example dot Java. So it is a class type only. Now let me try to create main method. So now we can talk about our actual, concept called variables. So how to declare a variable? First point, right? Variables are used to store the data. So second point is, what are the different type of variables, like primitive variables and reference variables, right? Let me try to create primitive variable. It is already highlighting, text editor. Int, I am trying to store age, so 25. So this is the syntax: declare a variable. So first one is the data type, second one is the variable name. So we are trying to assign to value by using assignment operator. Finally, I'm ending with semicolon. So this is the declaration and initialization of a variable. Moreover, that it is primitive type of variable. So not only integer, we can create boolean also. Boolean is adult. So we can store boolean value true and false only. So true. So now I declared integer and boolean. So floating point value also we can declare like float some fee, course fee. You can any kind of data you can store here. Here I am trying to declare variable name is fee. Something like I am trying to provide some uh, decimal value like in floating value. So like this, we need to end with f for all floating point values. So I declared three different kind of primitive variables. So variable, I mean how to declare variables, data type, variable name, value assignment. So this is the both at a time. So instead of this, let me try to first I can declare, then I will assign. So integer id. I mean student ID. So next line I will assign ID equal to student ID maybe 154. So this is also perfectly valid. So this is I mean declaring one time and initializing one time. So here both at a time. So here if you know already value, then you can declare and assign it. So if you know the value in future, for that you can declare a variable, then you can assign in future depending on your requirement. So not only, I mean, one value, we can initialize at a time more than one value. I mean, one variable. We can declare also more than one value at a time. I mean, whatever variable at a time. Like, let me try to declare here A, B, C. These are the three different variables. So I declared all at a time. But same type we need to, we need to aware of that. So all these three are the integer type of variables. So this is called, so we can declare more than one variable at a time. So we can initialize also no problem. So I am trying to initialize all variables value 10. So now A will be 10, B will be 10, C will be 10. Now let me try to write an S out. Then we can maybe you can get the point. So oh, let me try to run it. Yeah, A value is it is printing 10, right? Now let me try to print a B as well. B and run one more time. So A also 10, B also 10, C also 10, no problem. Can no problem. I can run with C also. Or else I can write separate statement. Now let me try to run one more time. So A will be 10, B will be 10, C will be 10. So this is called initialization at a time more than one variable. I mean declaring more than one variable at a time, initializing more than one variable at a time. So this is the, I mean, first video about how to declare a variable, how to assign a variable, and moreover that memory allocation for variable, and moreover that here I need to explain about scope. So variable scope. So here I declared age is adult fee. All these variables are declared inside main method. I mean main method, right? So this variable scope must be within this curly brace. Let me try to minimize this. Now if we can observe here, right? So this variable age scope must be from main method start to main method end here. So within this I can access age variable. If I can access outside of method, I will get compilation error. So let me try to create one method called here public static void some name, int name something, where method name I'm trying to declare here. So inside this I'm trying to, if I can write age, I will get compilation error. So why? Because that age variable must, I mean, having scope within that main method. This variable is, I mean, don't have scope for accessing outside of that main method. That's why here it is saying age cannot be resolved by a variable. So I mean, it is not recognizing this variable is not declared at any, I mean, not at all. So that's why it is giving this kind of compilation error. If I can move this variable outside of method, that will be, that variable have global scope. Now I won't get any compilation error. Moreover, that this is I declared method as a static, so that's why it is giving error. So or else you can make this variable static also, no problem. So I want, my intention is to show you scope of that variable. So now that age variable becomes a global variable. Now if I can access that age variable inside that main method and outside of main method also, I mean print method also, I can use that. Now let me try to print that one. So age, here I can differentiate some inside main, age outside, or else inside print. Inside print method, inside age method, I mean main method. So this is the static variable, I mean static method, right? We can't refer, I mean static variables non. We can't refer non-static variables inside a static method. That's why I'm getting here. One thing I'm trying to make this is as a static variable. So this method also I need to make it as a static. Now let me try to save it. So now age variable I'm trying to access inside main method inside print name method. Why? Because age is global variable. Now that p and is are the local variables. So now let me try to run. So inside main and this method is I am not calling, right? I'm not calling at all. That's why it is not printing. Now let me try to call that method print name. So inside main, inside print 25 25. Why? Because age is global variable. So this is the explanation about scope of that variables. So next video I will explain about what are the rules applicable for variables. So I will explain in detail. Moreover that one topic is I mean pending. I mean static variables and non-static variables also I will discuss in next video. So I hope you got some clarity on after watching this video. So what is the variable, how to declare variable, how to initialize variable, what is the scope of variable, and the memory allocation for variables. So if you like the content, hit on like button and subscribe Programming KT. Thanks for watching.